Hey RV family, keep it I keep it tight. My name is Jay Morris, the review guy, reviewing music for the love of music, and I'm back again to bring you another video. And in this one, I'm going to be conducting an interview with the duo known as Spirit Twin. Very big thanks to Alan and Anna for sitting down to do this review with me. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoy. So tell me a bit about yourselves. Tell me a bit about the project. Introduce yourselves.
I'm Anna.
And I'm Alan.
We're the electronic experimental duo Spirit Twin. We're based in Brooklyn, and we've been making music since 2015. Yeah.
I'm from Brooklyn, born and raised in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I'm actually originally from North Dakota, but I've been here for like 10 years. So
a lot of traveling. So the new record was such an auditory anomaly. That's the best way I can explain it, because it does seem like it's taking a lot of cues from this current wave of just very trancey, ambient-inspired electronic music. What were some of your biggest influences on the project as a whole? Were there certain artists that you really wanted to emulate or take hints from?
I've been a longtime Grimes fan, more so probably into her earliest stuff, and her newest album is really nice. Kotaro is a really big artist for me. If you're not familiar with him, he's like a Japanese synthy, kind of like new agey artist.
He's been making music since like the 70s.
Yeah, since like the 70s.
I'm not familiar with him. I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, his stuff is really interesting. He was friends with like Tangerine Dream. And they kind of taught him how to really like work synths during like Dune era, right?
He's the type that would have like stacks of modular synths like during
or
a
just
live
like
set.
Stacks of synths, and he like plays them at the same time. It's nuts.
Oh my god! So he was kind of ahead of the curve in that way.
Yeah, he's really good. He uses the scales that he uses too. So a lot of the album is based on like the black keys. You know, what is that? The Japanese scale. A lot of video games. Zelda Ocarina of Time. We have a few samples actually. And that song, Fields in the Rain.
Infinitely inspiring. Especially the very orchestral.
Yes. I really like Aisha Devi. I think that's how you pronounce her name.
Oh yeah.
What are some of yours that you really like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely inspired by a lot of trip hop. Trip hop is super inspiring to me, like Massive Attack, Tricky, Portishead, that type of vibe. Really inspired by Bjork and her use of electronic experimentation. Definitely a lot of Anna's inspirations too. I'm definitely inspired by Zelda and video games. We play a lot of video games at home here, which is also where we make our music. Yeah. So it's kind of one inspires the other.
Well, it is kind of it's super impressive that with how eclectic everything comes together. When you're listing those influences like Bjork and, like Portishead, like these soundtracks, you can hear all these individual inspirations. The production sounds flawless. For it being a homemade project, it rivals the best EDM producers that you see in like the top 40 in the mainstream. And I'm just wondering, how did you approach producing the record in such a way that it sounded so glitzy, it sounded so glistening, and it had this just unexplainable sheen to it all?
Thank you, first of all.
No, for sure.
a lot of trial and error. A lot.
Yeah, we're definitely
like, that's why it took us like, this was our first album, so we took like 2 years getting the entire process done. It was just a lot of trial and error. Basically like doing something over and over until it sounded the way we wanted to, because we're actually fairly new to producing. So
you wouldn't know it. You would not know.
Well, just maybe like a couple of years, maybe 2 years, but we're definitely perfectionists. I think that's just part of it. There were probably, I don't know, 30 plus songs in the catalog that we kind of cut down into the 9 on the album. So, that was just like, there were a couple songs that barely made the album that we were like, we weren't sure. And our mixer, Harakiri, shout out to Harakiri. She's an amazing mixer here in Brooklyn. She influenced us to put some of the tracks on the album. we had held a lot of these songs very close to us and didn't have a lot of people, didn't really get a chance to preview them to a lot of people. But when we finally did, people were like, these need to make the cut.
They see the light of day. One thing that, based on the research that I did about you guys when I first discovered you, and the thing that I got actually asked to ask from a friend of mine that had heard the record, is the aesthetic. Obviously, the look. The look of the project, it definitely has almost like, I wouldn't even say a brand, but just an ethos to it, a mythos. Like, where the look in general, where did that originate from? What to tie it to that project?
I kind of feel like music now and visuals are the same for me. So it's kind of just what was kind of channeling through us. I mean, our home is like filled with plants and crystals and tarot and all of that, you know. So it is a very kind of like mystic, you know, vibe. A lot of like movies that we watch are very, I don't know, I grew up like on The Dark Crystal and on like Legend with Tim Curry as like the devil. So just like those visuals have always really stuck with me. So I feel like that kind of just comes through in what we're doing.
Yeah, you embody that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Cyber Zelda.
Cyber Zelda.
Hyper-futuristic Zelda.
Yeah.
So, talking thematic elements with the record, the overall ethereal, ominous feel of the whole thing as it progresses, when you were going into it, when you were first starting the album making process, whether it be, you know, starting a track, starting a sample, starting a mix, was there a concrete feeling of what the record was going to be, what the theme was going to be, or did that come together as it progressed?
I think it came together, yeah, as it progressed. We definitely...
We didn't really have like, we weren't, when we first started making that music for the album, we were just making some songs. And then we kind of just, over time, had more of a collection. We're like, this could be an album.
I think certain songs definitely define the project. They were like, oh, we kind of want to take it in this direction now. For instance, like Just a Dream. Yeah, we just wanted things to kind of sound like that. Like we wanted some really heavy 808s, some really heavy kicks over some, you know, really ethereal, beautiful soundscapes. Kokiri 2 is another example. That was after we were playing Zelda, we just came up with that song.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just based on like the flutes in Ocarina of Time.
I would just like to say I base a lot of my vocals, I don't know, I always like think of aliens or something, right? Like little grays.
The very high pitched. Like...
Yeah, but also I had in mind like what would Navi, the fairy, sound like? You know?
Yeah.
She's the only character in Zelda that speaks, as in like you hear actual words. So I don't know. I was like basing it.
Everyone else just kind of grunts at you.
Yeah, grunts, and then there's like the words at the bottom.
Yeah. One thing, listening to the record, when you were listing the influences, and maybe this is something that I was just perceiving, but I'm curious to know, were you influenced at all by the PC music camp at all? The Charlie XCXs, the AG Cooks? Because I feel a lot of the very bubbly, just high-octane production coming through.
For sure, Daniel Harrell.
Yeah. I listen to Charlie XCX like when I'm exercising or something. I just really like how upbeat it feels, you know?
Mm-hmm.
In general, I wouldn't say that I'm like a huge pop, like I guess more of like the top 40 is not really my thing, but I really like hyperpop is really...
Yeah. Sophie.
Oh yeah, Sophie's great.
Incredible.
Oil of Every Pearl's on Inside's great record.
Yeah, very
and
beautiful.
I think it's funny that a lot of these A.G. Cook inspired artists are starting to break more and more out into the mainstream, where you saw like when Charlie XCX dropped her most recent record and Anthony Fantano reviewed it, it almost got like, I think it got like 1 million views. Like, people know these artists, and it's like the experimental is now becoming the mainstream, and you have these
Caroline Polachek.
Yeah, Caroline Polachek with Pang. Like, you have these artists that are incorporating these avant-garde elements, and they're becoming the norm. People are wanting that production style. I mean, do you see that landscape changing in EDM in general to that type of production for the future?
I definitely think there's an anti-pop narrative that's something that's like a little bit more unpolished and from the heart, something that doesn't feel like it was made in a studio with like 50 writers, you know, something that feels like it was almost homemade, but still.
Well, that's the way it's going now, especially with quarantine.
Yeah.
I mean, people are.
For sure.
I mean, it's sparking a ton of records. It's sparking a ton of songs. I mean, that's if one good thing has come from this, it's the art that's being created from these heavy emotions that everyone's feeling at the time. It's weighing down on a lot of people, and it's overwhelming in many ways. So people are creating this beautiful art, and I think electronic music is such a great way of portraying that, because instrumentally you can do so much with electronic music that you can't necessarily with just normal instrumentation.
Yes.
I guess the main thing that I have to ask is, what's coming down the pipeline? What's the future plans for the project?
Well, quarantine has definitely had a huge effect on us.
Yeah, we're in like a lot of people have been reaching out worried about us because, New York is like the epicenter of coronavirus right now.
Oh, yeah.
We're
but it's
definitely
actually
more fortunate than most people.
I feel like we've been okay. And I almost feel like, I don't know, like the first week into quarantine or first couple weeks, I was like not feeling good. I was like, oh, I'm going to get so much music stuff done. And then I was like, but I feel like we've kind of come out of that in the last little while, and we've actually had a lot of people reaching out for collaborations, like a lot.
Well, I can see why. I mean, your style, even though it is simultaneously in with this very, hyper aggressive type of electronic pop music, it still has something different. Like you said, the trip hop elements, the OST elements, it's much different, because usually it's very straightforward nowadays. It's just very in your face, it's very blunt, and you can kind of understand what they're doing. So for that, I really commend you guys for the new record. It really is great, and I do recommend it for everyone.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
No problem at all. So any closing thoughts?
I just wanted to add off of what Anna said. So quarantine has opened us up to a lot more collaborations. So in terms of what's going on for us next, the BPM is definitely going higher. It's definitely going up.
Somehow find
there are a couple. So it's becoming even more hyper pop. There's other genres that we're kind of mixing into. So we're kind of letting the direction, we're kind of just going whatever direction comes to us. We're, not trying to force anything, and kind of just see what works out in the next couple of weeks or months that we have this opportunity to, really bunker down.
Yeah. I think also like allowing ourselves to realize there are no rules.
Yeah, it's okay to not feel okay right now.
Yeah, well, and also like making something completely different than what we've made before. Because I feel like a lot of artists kind of, they're like, oh, I have to stay with this genre. I have to do this because
it's
this
what
is what
got
is
me
expected.
big. I have to stick to it, pigeonhole myself.
Algorithms.
Yeah, you got to stay popular. It's all a race to be relevant, and people kind of lose the narrative of it's not just the genre you play in, it's the talent that was in that genre. The passion that you created the first album with, you may not have 4 or 5 albums of the same. It's going to wear down over time, for sure.
Yeah, it's true. I think you were talking earlier about how the album came together, and I really feel like, for me, what I realized about us is that there's this duality between Anna and I.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
that comes through in the album, without even forcing it. It just kind of happened. It was like these very hard drums mixed with this very ethereal vocals, and that kind of embodies who Anna and I are, and our influences. And I'm from Brooklyn, and Anna's from North Dakota, and we have different upbringings, but we came together, and that's kind of what embodies Spirit Twin.
Well, now that I think about it, that kind of brings up a good point of, did either of you inspire the other with either a genre or an influence that the other had not been exposed to or didn't even consider for the record? Some sort of sound that you specifically enjoyed that the other maybe didn't appreciate as much until?
I kind of feel like when I started singing and I requested I want to do really pitched up vocals, or I want to sound super bratty, that was very new for us at the time, and we were kind of like, well, we also had conversations maybe this is not something we want to put on every song, but it's on like all the songs pretty
Yeah.
much, even just little bits of it. So just like kind of getting weird and taking that character and just totally going for it.
Yeah, I mean, even the way the album came together. So there were times when Anna was just like sitting on the couch on GarageBand iOS and fooling.
Really great program, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that use GarageBand. It is a good program.
Yes, and it's free.
Mhm. No
Yeah,
excuse.
sure.
Go get GarageBand. No excuse. Start producing.
But like, she would come up with a sound or an idea, and then she would throw it to me, and I'd put it into Ableton, and we'd kind of go back and forth on stuff. So we have a very collaborative nature. So there are definitely aspects of Anna's production or my production that influence each other. It goes back and forth. We both produce equally on the record, and I think it shows.
Well, yeah, I overall just really love the record. It is going to be down in the description box below for all streaming, as well as links to social media. Do you got any closing thoughts, any final words before we close it out?
I'm just really excited to see what everybody else is creating right now too, because we're creating some like I'm excited to see how what we're doing pans out. I think this is really pushing people right now, almost like kind of like having another Renaissance or something. You know, I feel like what was it? Maybe I'm not much of a history buff, but the Renaissance happened with like art and music like after a big plague or
Yeah,
like
I
there
think it
was
was
or the
right.
Dark Ages. or
Yeah, I was
something.
about to say, I think it was right
Yeah.
after the Black Death, wasn't it? Like it came about right after that, and it was when you come out of something, people are thirsty for living life because they kind of took it for granted. So they're like,
Yeah.
okay, let's make the great art, let's make music, and it's just fueled by that heavy emotion. So that's fortunately or unfortunately, the harshest of emotions breeds the best music a lot of times and the best art, because art is a lot of times driven by raw emotion, and you have that passion.
Yeah.
Well, I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciated stopping by for the interview. Much appreciated. Would love to have you guys on in the future for new projects and all of that good stuff. So thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much
it.
for
Thanks
having us. And stay well.
You as well. Stay safe.
Take care.
Bye.